The Visitor. When I was in my 20s, I was working the night shift and taking care of elderly patients. It'd been a fairly quiet evening, but one of the patients, Mrs. Hofstetter, was having a rough one. She didn't want to be alone, and she wasn't able to sleep. Because there were 3 of us on shift, we decided it would be okay for us to take turns keeping her company. She told me stories about her childhood. She said that she could remember her childhood perfectly. It was just the more recent things she tended to have trouble remembering. No one ever visited Mrs. Hofstetter. She was an only child, and her parents, aunts, and uncles had long ago died. Her only son had put her in the nursing home and abandoned her. For reasons unknown to us, and of course none of our business, they didn't get along. As I sat with her that night, she didn't reveal much about her relationship with her son. Just that there were regrets, and that she was never meant to be a mother. The child's father was never in his life, and never even knew that she had been pregnant. When her parents found out, they disowned her. I was young, she said. I wasn't patient. I was in pain, and I used that pain in the wrong way. I was not a good mother. I could see it was upsetting her, so I changed the topic towards food she liked as a child. Being that she was very tired, she was drifting in and out, and her answers were very random. All of a sudden, she sat upright and asked me to make the man leave. What man? I asked. Please make the man leave. I'm not ready to see the man. I don't want anything to do with that man. Please. Please go away now, she said, looking at the doorway. I am not ready. I looked around the room, and no one was there. Shh. It's okay. There's no one here, I promise, I said to her. He was just there, she said, pointing at the doorway. But he's gone just now, she said, drifting off to sleep. She began to snore. I left her alone in her room to rest. I didn't really think much of her outburst. It wasn't exactly an uncommon occurrence for people of her age to start seeing random things when they get to the point where their mind is slowly starting to leave them. We had people that claimed that they witnessed Nazis walking in the hall, so it just wasn't unusual. When it was finally time to clock out, I checked on her one last time, and she was still snoring. I went home and went to sleep, basically preparing to do it all over again the next day. When I arrived at work the following evening, I found out that Mrs. Hofstetter had died at some point during the early morning hours after I had left. I was tasked with calling her son. I really didn't want to do it, and I was pretty angry that no one had yet to do it, but I was pressured into it. He didn't say anything for about a minute. Then he cleared his throat and spoke. I don't mean to sound as if I don't care. I realized that the woman gave me life. That's about all she ever did for me, though. That was positive. And there were points in my life when I even questioned if her giving me life was even worth it. She was physically and verbally abusive. She had me far too young, and she never once let me forget it. She didn't have the maternal instinct. In fact, she always said someday she'd probably be carted off by the devil himself for being such a terrible mother. But that never stopped her from locking me in the closet if I got home from school late, or her throwing my plate on the floor if I didn't eat my dinner fast enough. I don't really know what to say here. She manipulated me for many years. I took care of her as an adult until I finally realized that I needed to get out of the cycle. I'm sorry, I don't know what to say. I didn't know what to say either. I was horrified. This sounded like a completely different person than the woman we'd all come to know at the home and taken care of for a number of years. Perhaps it was all true, and these were the things that she regretted. This is what she was talking about. This is why she was so upset. Can people change? I don't know. Looking at her and speaking to her in the home, you'd never get the impression that she was that type of person. But from the pain in her son's voice, I know he was telling the truth. Suddenly, his words hit me in a weird place, because I remembered the previous evening when she'd yelled at a man that wasn't really there. She said she wasn't ready to see him, and she didn't want anything to do with him, and she was frightened. Maybe she did see something, or someone. Question is, was it someone nice, or someone there to punish her? I don't like to think about it. And it also makes me wonder about all the Nazis that the patients have seen walking up and down the hall.